Welcome to the Black Sparrow Media Internet Broadcast Network.
You are listening to Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a podcast about Linux, open source, and amateur radio for everyone. Now here are your hosts, Russ, K5TUX, Cheryl, W5MOO, and Bill, NE4RD.
Well, hello everybody and welcome. You have tuned into episode number 478 of Linux in the Ham Shack, the most terrific amateur radio podcast on the internet. And you have tuned in on a special day because this is the Weekender edition. It's the 95th edition of the Weekender, getting close to 100 of these. And quite frankly, I think they're improving every time. So we hope you enjoy them. If you don't, you're more than welcome to skip over to some of the other content we have, but I think our new Wheel of Topics format is kind of fun, and hopefully we'll have a great topic tonight. I've got the wheel loaded up, and we're going to get to that here in a second, but before we do, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD.
All right, so I think we should just go ahead and dive on into it. We've had a couple of technical topics the last couple of weekenders, so I'm hoping for a hedonistic topic. We'll see what happens. It is totally random. I've loaded up the picker wheel. I've got all of our topics in there that we have yet to discuss, and I'm going to click the button and see what happens. And if I recall correctly, everybody can actually hear this now. So
yes.
All right, here we go. And I've already done the 5 randomizations. So here's the button push. And no hedonism tonight.
Well, there will be.
There will be, yes, but not for the random topic. The random topic is going to start a holy war.
Oh, no.
The best Linux distribution. So, are we ready to cover this one?
Oh boy.
I guess we should define best before we go forward. So, what do we think? Best as far as overall usability, best as a ham radio distribution, best as an overall, distribution for all types of computer usage, or what? What are we calling best?
Well, I think we can cheat a little bit here because we can say that the best Linux distribution is the one that works right for you. Checks all your boxes for what you want to do. And I mean, that's why nobody runs the same system, we all run our own little flavors of everything. And, but I think we can kind of start with some of the check boxes, easy for ham radio getting started, easy for just, desktop user getting started. I think there are some distributions that kind of fit into those categories, including best for a low end system, best for a high end system, best for customizations, stuff like that, stuff that allows people to, kind of start a direction and then go from there.
Okay, well, Don has, I think, the 2 best criteria for the best Linux distribution, and that is the one where your Wi-Fi and audio drivers work automatically.
Well, that depends on your computer, too.
Well, that's true.
If you're going to run a Mac, expect to have to load the Wi-Fi driver separately.
I don't think I had to do that on my iMac.
I had to do it for mine.
Your Mini, though, right?
The Mini, yeah, the Mini, because it has the B43 drivers.
See, I don't know what audio drivers are in my Mac Mini because I have a different one than you have.
Yeah, I have the mid 2011. You have the 2008 or something like that.
Right, and I have an iMac that's about the same vintage, and they both worked fine. I don't remember having to futz with audio at all.
No, this is Wi-Fi.
Or Wi-Fi. I don't remember having to futz with Wi-Fi at all either.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this is a known issue for that age, that particular one. I think it was more than just the mid 2011 Mac Mini, but there are several that had the B43 or whatever I think it is, the B33 or B34, B43.
B43. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to like download that package separately and install it. So, and I've installed it on Ubuntu and Fedora, and it works fine. So you can get around that problem, I think, without an issue. No matter which OS or distribution you actually choose.
Okay, well, let's pick 5 checkboxes that cover the best, and then we'll pick the one we think covers those 5. So the first one should be what? Ham radio usability, since that's what we're talking about.
I'm going to keep notes here.
I'm putting them in the show notes here.
Oh, okay, cool.
So ham radio usability, then let's see, general usability, like for average users.
Yeah, like desktop users.
Right. Portability, maybe, like the ability to run on different hardware, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
I'll change that from portability to flexibility. How about that?
that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Let's pick 2 more criteria for best here. Ham radio usability, general usability, flexibility, ease of install.
Yes.
Ease of install. And
probably application availability.
Right. Okay. Application availability and ease of updating. We'll put that as number 5. Okay. So with those 5 criteria in mind, and we'll send this over to the chat room as well, too. They can throw in their candidates in the ring here. Let me. Boy, we're getting a lot of people in the chat. So. A B7YS. Okay, yeah. So if anybody has any thoughts, go ahead and throw your thoughts in the ring. There was a time when based on these criteria, I would have said Linux Mint. I will not say Linux Mint anymore.
Well, I think for Linux Mint, it's probably ham radio usability is fine, right? General usability is probably fine as well, because a lot of people like the interface, because the interface is sort of mocked up after Windows XP or something like that.
Right.
Originally. I mean,
right.
Now it's kind of grown up and stuff like that, but.
And of course you have to pick whether you're talking about like Mate or Cinnamon, because they're very different experience.
Yeah. I guess that's where we get the distribution in the desktop environment, where we can't conflate the two, because you can do a desktop environment can fix some people's problems with some of these checkboxes.
But I think an average user does conflate the two. I don't think they separate desktop environment from Linux system. So,
yeah. Well, that's a problem. Therein lies the problem, right? Because
okay, well, we can separate it though. We can separate Linux system, and we can pick a best Linux distribution and a best desktop environment. So let's do that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds probably better. So it's Arch and KDE. Okay, we're all done. Thanks, kids. Bye.
I think you might get some pushback on
that. Oh, I know. Gosh. Obviously, I mean, we put our distribution together and it's built on top of Ubuntu, and there's a reason for that. Is because it generally works everywhere you try it. It might not always have the latest, greatest availability of applications, but you can fix that. It's super easy to install. It's super flexible, although some would argue being stuck in LTS is part of its inflexibility. General usability, yeah, sure, it's fine. I think even I think you can find a desktop environment that suits your workflow. I mean, you use KDE for stuff. I use GNOME when it comes to stuff like that. Ham radio usability, obviously, TrueBlend for the win. And you could download everything that's not there that needs to be there. I mean, it would probably be the top mark. I mean, because by example, right? I mean, we literally put it out right in Ubuntu for this specific reason. It's not the best distribution for everyone, and I think that's kind of what we're getting at when I originally said, the right distribution is the one that fits all of your requirements. And Ubuntu might not be that. Some people might like Mint better.
I think we're trying to, like, if someone asked us for a recommendation, we're trying to put out what we would say is the best thing we could think of. Because, like, once upon a time, like I said, we used to say Linux Mint. Now I wouldn't say that. I have to say something else. But we're doing the picking. If somebody else wants to figure out what boxes work for them, then that's on them. But they're a
fairly new user, Yeah, I think Ubuntu would be probably the best choice.
See, I'm leaning in a different way. I think because most of the distributions we use, and because you mentioned the Ham Radio Pure Blend, which was something that came out of Debian.
Yeah.
And Debian underpins so many other distributions, including Ubuntu and Mint and all the other ones we generally talk about that don't like fly off into the world of Red Hat and Arch. That I would definitely say Debian might be the best distribution because it's the foundation of so many others, but in and of itself is not that good because it's very slow to progress. However, Sparky sort of fixes that problem.
Yeah, if you want to live on the testing build, yeah. I mean, you could do that with Ubuntu as well, right? You can sit on the testing branch and, it'll be mostly stable.
Right, but then you're losing that bullet point of ease of install and stuff because once you're getting into like beta distros and stuff like that, you've lost your average user installation base.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you want to say that, then they have Rhino now, right? And that's basically Ubuntu already ready to be on the testing branch. Isn't that what's called? Rhino?
Yeah, but can we recommend a distribution to all people that we haven't even discussed?
We have talked about Rolling Rhino before, but not in the context. Well, we did talk about it in the context of it's not ready. It's not ready yet.
Okay, well, I think that immediately disqualifies it from this list.
The scripts work fine, but the installer was not. I had issues with it, so yeah. I would still say Ubuntu. I mean, Sparky Linux, yeah. But yeah. This is so hard. Oh my gosh. Why does it have to be this hard?
Okay, so we're kind of settling on Ubuntu. So
yeah, I think Ubuntu smooths out the edges that Debian presents. Because Debian is not particularly friendly when it comes to actually dealing with the user base. And I'm only saying that because I can't even think of the last time I actually did a live Debian disk. It's been probably a long time. But I have used Sparky Linux, and I did like it very much. But I didn't think it was as polished as Ubuntu.
Yeah, Debian, the root Debian distributions, which Sparky is, it's just the rolling version of basic Debian, tends to not be as polished as Ubuntu. Canonical actually makes an effort to make things very user friendly. I mean, that's been part of their focus for probably since the very beginning. So, yeah, I guess you can always count on Ubuntu, but when you get out of the LTS releases, when you get into the odd number .10s and stuff, they have issues.
Yeah, because they're rolling out new features, new functionality, and generally, yeah, they're not LTS ready, and that's the whole point of them.
Right. So maybe if we're going to specify Ubuntu, we're going to have to say only the LTS Ubuntus, because
at least in the first year. They get a little too old.
Well, it's true. I mean, and you're always fighting that aging out process. There are ways to put newer versions of stuff onto LTS releases, but then you can get into problems with that too. So I don't know. I don't like Ubuntu as an answer. I don't.
I don't either. And they've been kind of going downhill, only in the aspect of, they're kind of forcing things to happen, stuff like that are not very popular in the community and stuff like that. This is the whole, you get into the Snap, the Flatpak, and
yeah, app image, all of which suck. So
yeah, it's definitely encumbered quite a bit to try to get that stuff to work out of the box, which I think is not nice, is not good for the general usability for average users, because the whole point of getting an average user on there is that they want to be able to install their application regardless of where it comes from. It's only offered as an app image or only offered as a deb or only offered as a flat pack. It should be relatively easy for someone to get something installed. And I think it kind of loses a little bit of steam there because it is a bit cumbersome to get that stuff back working because it does not set up that way by default.
Yeah, I think the later versions of Ubuntu now install Firefox as a snap, which I think is a cop-out.
Yeah.
But maybe
there's distinct advantages to that. I understand why they want to do that. It's not popular, though. It's definitely not popular.
So you've been using Pop! OS.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have.
What do you think about that in relation to this discussion?
I mean, I like it. I think it probably solves some of the odd things that you don't like about Ubuntu, or I don't like about Ubuntu. But in the same hand, I have not been able to build a live disk from it. So that's my problem.
Right.
Overall, yeah, it's God, is it better? I haven't used Ubuntu as a daily driver in a while, but I do use that like pretty often. And I'm very happy with it. And I literally use it like a regular user. I don't do anything special on there. I mean, I did install VS Code and I did do one tiny little coding project on it. But like in general, I use the web browser and I use LibreOffice. That's pretty much all I use that box for because it's really not, strong enough to do anything else useful. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I think Pop! OS would probably be a really good candidate to fill in the gaps where Ubuntu kind of starts having issues. Pop! OS does not have the exact same issues, but like the availability of different desktop environments might be an issue for some people. I think Pop! OS only comes with their version of GNOME, right? Or am
I don't actually use Pop! OS. I know it's definitely in your wheelhouse, so I don't know what. I mean, technically, you can install any desktop environment on any Linux system.
Oh, yeah. After the fact, you can do whatever you want.
Right. So let me throw one other Debian variant in the mix that I think comes up in discussions like this quite a bit, although it's something we haven't really touched on or discussed in a while.
Are you going to say SUSE?
No, I'm not going to say SUSE. I'm going to say Elementary.
Oh, yeah. Not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. Fair enough.
Not anymore. I think they started falling apart on the high DPI stuff. The UI looks really wonky. The last time I messed with it in high DPI, it doesn't scale very nicely, and then it just does weird stuff. So I haven't been happy with that in a while, and that's probably why we haven't talked about it in a while. Because I would think I was the only one actually cheering it on probably like 4 years ago or something like that. So, Elementary is just sexy. It looks great. It looks great if you have an FHD screen, a 1080, whatever, 920 by 1080, whatever.
Yeah.
Screen, 1080p. Looks beautiful. But yeah, start putting it on like a, 1440p screen or something like that, or do some scaling on some other weird resolutions. Like, let's say a QHD screen that's 3200 by 1600 or something like that. So really weird stuff. It does not look, it starts falling apart. It definitely starts falling apart at the seams. Now, maybe there's a newer version that has kind of, I think everybody's kind of matured in the high DPI area lately, probably within the last 2 years. So maybe that's not current anymore knowledge, or not a current feature or current problem with the existing Elementary. But again, all these things are all based on Debian. So
right.
I mean, you have to say, like, of the distributions, Debian is the core, the rock solid piece for sure. But when it comes to packaging it into a distribution, Pop! OS definitely stands out as a winner. I mean, obviously, HP decided to put out a laptop with Pop! OS on it. Geez. How many people are going to hate us after this? Jeez, I don't like having this discussion. I like Fedora too, but I don't think it's terribly user friendly. It is really nice, but
The packaging system has always fallen a little short for me, and they've also played around with it some, because it used to be just like straight RPM, then they went to Yum, now they use DNF, and so So they're futzing around with the back end stuff and making it more complicated than it needs to be, I think. And so for that reason, I don't think it stands up. The apt and the depackaged environment of Debian seems to be pretty universal and pretty flexible.
Yeah, years ago it used to be like, if somebody was going to package something, it would have been an ARP. I mean, that might be like 15 years ago, but but now, yeah, it's like it's either in a deb or an RPM if they've even packaged it, or they've gone and used app image, Flatpak, or Snap at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the enterprise space, you definitely want to stay on the RPM side, I think, because that's where they focus. But I don't think we're talking about that. So
yeah, no. So I run Garuda Linux here, so it's an Arch with KDE, and it's not user friendly.
Right.
But it works perfectly for me. So I don't see myself changing this out. Like I say, I run Pop OS, and I don't see myself changing that laptop again. And my Mac Mini runs Fedora, but I haven't turned on the Mac Mini in probably, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months. so there's my votes.
Yeah.
Pop OS or Arch, one or the other. There you go.
Okay. And I haven't run Pop OS. Basically, if I'm running anything around here, it's either straight Debian or Ubuntu. So would you choose Pop OS over Ubuntu based on the criteria we've outlined?
Yes.
You think
I would.
You think it's ease of install and general application availability and ease of updating? The last bullets are better than straight Ubuntu?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'll just say it now. Yes. I think Pop OS is better as of right now. I mean, that could all change, but like right now, yeah. If I compare the Ubuntu LTS with Pop OS with the Linux Mint and Elementary, so like thinking about all the derivatives of Debian, even Sparky Linux, I probably still choose Pop OS. Actually, I think it's nice, it's comfortable, it's easy to use, it's not heavyweight on the memory usage. Yeah, I don't see any downs from that choice over the others at this point.
Okay, and since it's actually derived from the systems that I use and I would recommend anyway, I'm willing to go with Pop OS, even having never really used it. But
now some people don't like it, right? Because it is GNOME, right? It's a but they've done some stuff to it to make it at least add all the features that I want out of the box. So like out of the box, it already has a dock and everything else, and it's quite performant. I ran several OSs on that particular box that's flaky anyways. I think the processor has actually got problems with it, so it always flakes out anyway. But I think it's ran its best, and I think I said this before to you when I put Pop OS on there. I think this thing has run its best it's ever ran since I put that on there.
All right,
there's
so
definite hardware problems.
Yeah. All right, so definitely we're going down the Debian derivative chain, and I guess we'll land on Pop OS as far as the Linux distribution itself. Now, like you said, that comes with GNOME, and it comes with its own customized version of GNOME 3, but we're kind of separating out desktop environments. So if you had to choose the best desktop environment, I know you wouldn't pick GNOME. So what would you say?
Well, no, I mean, actually, I probably would because, I did like Budgie for a while, but, I have no problem with GNOME. The only problem I've ever had is with the file manager, and like I could fix that or change that myself to something else. And that's the only thing I don't like about it. Other than that, it works fine for my workflow. I hit the super key, type in what I want, press the enter button. Guess what? It pops up. The application pops up. I have KDE on my recording computer here, and I use it in the garage, and it's screened and everything else. And I hate KDE.
I have
it looks great, but
it is fantastic.
I don't like it.
Yes,
I don't like it.
Very flashy, very very glossy, very eye candy, and for certain applications, I don't mind it. But
sometimes it just gets in the way. I don't know. But like some people, they love KDE. Like that's their stuff. They love the flow. They love everything. I think I like more of the minimal stuff, like not quite to the i3WM or whatever it is, or to the windowless window managers and stuff like that. But for like general use, yeah, I think GNOME and the GTK backend and stuff like that, I think it works. It's definitely more user friendly in the most part. I haven't tried a high DPI with this particular box because I don't have any high DPI screens on this KDE, so I don't know like what this would look like in a high DPI environment. But yeah, I know what the Pop! OS GNOME does, and that does fine because I have that stupid quad HD screen on that box, and it flips between high DPI and low DPI without any issues, and it looks exactly the same no matter which mode you're in, which is really peculiar. Because it never worked that well when you had to do that before. So
I think I use GNOME more than anything, absolutely. And I think if you look at it from a base install on any particular distribution that uses GNOME as its default desktop environment, all the way up to getting it customized to exactly fit your workflow, I think it's probably the most usable. And I wouldn't have a problem recommending GNOME or saying GNOME is the best based on the criteria we've specified. Although John in the chat says he's disliked it since they changed the way the mouse buttons work in the scroll bars. Okay, I'm not following that.
The mouse buttons work in the scroll bars. I don't know if I've ever used the mouse buttons in the scroll bar besides grabbing the scroll thing.
Grabbing the little slider and moving it up and down. That's
which generally my slider is so tiny I can't even do that. So I mean,
I use the scroll wheel.
Yeah, ever since the invention of the scroll mouse, I don't think I've grabbed too many Windows sliders unless it's an old VB app in Windows or whatever that doesn't respond to a scroll event.
Yeah, and I've not really run into many occasions. I have once or twice come to an occasion where the scroll wheel doesn't actually do anything, and you've had to manually click on the little slider, but that's pretty rare. And I'm just so used to using the center scroll wheel that I don't.
Never seen that, John.
Right mouse button in every other system goes down or up by one screen length when you click above or below the thumb. Okay, what does GNOME do?
When you click above. Dink, dink, dink. Okay, so that does.
I've never actually used that gesture, so I have no idea what it does.
Oh yeah, you just click underneath of it and it jogs down to the next thing.
See, I've left clicked above and below the slider.
Left click, that's what I've used. I've never used the right.
I've never used right click. It's always left click.
Right click is technically a menuing button, not necessarily a nav button. So it wouldn't make any sense for the UI or user experience to change the behavior of the right mouse button, unless that was wrong to begin with in GNOME 2 or something.
He says that GNOME does that functionality with the middle button. Not every mouse has a middle button.
Well, it's the scroll wheel has a middle.
Yeah. I mean, it can be used as a middle button, sure. But see that I'm using it here, and the middle button does it for me on macOS. It goes up by a page.
Well, I would be fine.
Right click does nothing.
Middle button and left button should do that. Right click should never do a nav event. Sorry, that's a UX thing. Oh, he says you got right and left mixed up. Okay, there you go. So yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm not in. I don't have my GNOME box in front of me, so I'm not looking at that. I'm just in my KDE, and it does that with both the left and the middle button. But I will gladly test Pop! OS to see if it does that. I've never. I use a scroll wheel, or I use a touch screen, which I have to say on Pop! OS works great.
You see, I've always done that with a pretty much mindless left click, and it has always worked, even in GNOME. So I don't know.
Well, let's move on from that because that's
right.
Well, seems to be an interesting discussion.
Right. So we were settling on a desktop environment, and I think we're saying GNOME 3.
Yeah, I mean GNOME. Yeah, whatever the latest version is, isn't it like 4 or something now?
Well, whatever it is, whatever GNOME version comes with, like Pop! OS, for example, or Ubuntu.
I think it's GNOME 43-ish now, 42, 43, which would be GNOME 4.
All right. So are we comfortable with that? We're gonna settle on that as our answer, and
sure.
see how many hate mails we get.
Hate mails, yeah. Okay, hate mail. That's terrible. Everybody should be running cinnamon or mate. And that's great for people that are very menu centric to using menus. I particularly don't like menus in my way. I kill them all in Windows 10 too, so that tells you anything. So.
Yeah, I don't use Windows either, or menus. So
yeah. Menus just get all messed up and they put ads in there and they reorder stuff when you put a new app in there. I'd rather not. I always get confused when I actually have to search for an app. It's like I just start typing. It's like, oh, I didn't install it on this machine because I'm getting like a Bing search result or something stupid. It's like, so yeah.
I'm curious now if Cheryl has any input on this discussion.
She probably fell asleep.
She may have.
Oh, here she is.
What? Huh? What?
Huh?
Do you have any input on this discussion? The best Linux distribution?
A one that works.
There you go.
Yeah,
that was my first answer.
Yeah, that's the easy out answer. But
No, I have absolutely no input on those.
We had to generate controversy. You can't just say whatever works. So
yeah.
Sorry,
Too easy.
I have no input here. So
okay, well it's okay because we're coming up on your time to shine here because we're down to it. We've decided on Pop! OS and the current version of GNOME as the best Linux distribution and DE combination. So
sure,
yeah, ever.
Yeah, ever until the next best thing comes along. So
right.
You realize hate mail is going to be rolling in within 10 minutes.
No, I
now we should
fully
remind
expect it.
people this is based upon the 5 criteria items that we have in our list, which is ham radio usability, which I don't think anybody can really argue about that. General usability for the average user, define an average user. I don't know. Could your parents use? Could your grandparents use GNOME and Pop! OS? I think they could. Flexibility.
I think they could. Yep.
Yeah, flexibility. I think almost all desktop environments are super flexible these days. So I don't think that would get in the way. It's just really the OS, whether the OS can be installed pretty much anywhere. Which again, I think that probably fits the bill too. Ease of install. There's 5 screens to go through to install it. I think it's pretty. And application availability, ease of updating. Yep, Flatpaks, snaps, whatever you want to put on there, you can put on there. So, bada bing, bada boom.
Yep. All right. Well, there's your answer, and we look forward to your hate mail.
Yeah, and if System 76 wants to sponsor us and send us some, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Or if all the other distributions we have somehow, dissed during this discussion want to send us their best and brightest for us to test, let us know. We'll get right on that.
We do go through a lot of distributions here. So, I mean, that's kind of what we do, or at least I do. I do a lot of distro hopping. I do a lot of testing of distribution. So I think, I have a pretty good handle on what works and what doesn't work. Yeah, I have my own biased workflows and, much like I'm using an operating system. I mean, the desktop windowing environment right now, KDE, that I wouldn't actually use on any machine. I'm literally using it right now. So yeah, I mean, it's probably not very bad.
All right. Very good. Well, that has been our random discussion topic for this weekender, the best ham radio distribution. I hope it starts picking some hedonistic stuff. We've had 3 tech topics in a row. I want to hit some of the good stuff.
Now that you've said that, you're going to have another 27 tech topics.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, we need people to send in new tech topics so we can flood it with many, many tech topics so we can continue to not have any fun in the first half of the show. We just want to start controversies.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Well, let's move on to some of that fun and that hedonism and all of that stuff that makes life worth living. And we'll jump off with food and bring Cheryl into the conversation, and she can talk about what kind of food we've got for this week. And then, of course, we're going to follow up with alcohol because, alcohol fuels us. So,
right.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay. So for the recipe this week, I picked air fryer panko crusted pork chops. So it's time to drag out your air fryer or invest in one if you don't have one and prepare yourself to enjoy these juicy pork chops. And the recipe, of course, will be in the show notes, but it involves water, kosher salt, white sugar, rosemary, bay leaf, pork chops, of course, egg, panko breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese, Italian seasoning, black pepper, olive oil, parsley, and rosemary for a garnish. And you'll need most of a day to do it because this does create a brine that you need to to let your chops sit in for a while. So start early in the day and you'll have a very tasty pork chops for dinner. And then for the mixed drink corner this week, I picked a pineapple sangria. And summer is drawing to a close, but that doesn't mean that we have to skip out on enjoying a nice sangria. This one does take some time, so you'll need to start it probably the day before you plan on drinking it. And it will make about a gallon, so prepare yourself for that. But for this, you need Sauvignon Blanc, pineapple juice, triple sec brandy, fresh pineapple, orange, lemon, and fresh oranges, lemons, and limes, and a carbonated beverage that's lemon lime flavored like 7-Up, Sprite, or Sierra Mist. So, and of course, the recipes for both of those will be in the show notes. So,
very good. And John pointed out in the chat room that using kosher salt on pork chops is a bit of a
misnomer.
It's a bit of an oxymoron.
Yeah.
It does not make your pork chops kosher, people. So.
yeah. Don't go with that one. So.
All right. Very good. So what do I have? I have some stuff that I picked up actually in Louisville in the distillery. I went to Old Forester, a week and a half ago?
About 2 weeks ago now.
Well, that's true. I don't remember what day it was. It was whatever. It was like Friday. Saturday.
No, it was Saturday or Sunday that you were in Louisville.
It was Saturday morning. I was in Louisville.
Yeah.
Not like yesterday, a week ago.
And it was
no, it was 2 weeks ago. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Wow.
The drinking has begun, people. So yes. So I was traveling with my brother on our way from New Hampshire down here to Missouri so he could spend some time down here and get away from work for a while. And on the way, we made a few pit stops, and one of those pit stops was Louisville, Kentucky. And as you might be aware, in Louisville, Kentucky, there are many distilleries. So I had to stop at the one that I routinely describe as my favorite, because my favorite whiskey is Old Forester 1920. So I had to hit the Old Forester distillery, and I did that. I tried many things at the Old Forester distillery, even some stuff you can't actually buy, like the President's Select 24, President's Select 25, and some other stuff. I did the Statesman, which of course is readily available. And they had like Old Forester 117, single barrel, something like that. And it was a whole bunch of great stuff. But what I brought home from Old Forester is the Old Forester Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. So what is Old Forester? Yeah, well, you know what it is. It's straight rye whiskey. In 1870, this is by Old Forester, by the way. Our founder, George Garvin Brown, revolutionized the industry by sealing bourbon in a glass bottle for the first time. What the hell were they using before? Newspaper? I mean, it wasn't plastic, right? So what did they put bourbon in before glass?
Just oak barrels. You need to drink it right from the barrel.
Well, I guess you drink it. Yeah, I suppose drink it right from the barrel.
That would be so good.
5 generations and nearly 150 years later, we are proud to introduce the first Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey from the first bottled bourbon. A historic recipe acquired in 1940 by Owsley Brown I, Old Forester Rye benefits from a fully natural fermentation process, foregoing the need for artificial enzymes commonly found in high rye mash bills. Additionally, a generous percentage of malt yields a unique floral character, balancing the sharp, brisk spice of the rye grain. Continuing our legacy of quality and consistency, Old Forester uses its own proprietary yeast strain, produces every barrel, and distills every drop. At 100 proof, Old Forester Rye plays beautifully in a cocktail, but also stands up boldly on its own. So it says clay jugs. Pretty sure they weren't distilling back in ancient Egypt, but
actually, I just looked it up.
No, they were. Oh, is it clay jugs?
It's ceramic or clay jugs. Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. In the beginning, there was a
You
jug.
were told.
I know. I got schooled.
Yeah, before distillers used glass bottles, none of them offered branded ceramic or clay jugs that could be filled and sold to customers.
Well, how about that?
And
all right.
The more you know.
That's right.
Dun, dun, dun.
We're like an after-school special for booze.
I did it because of you.
All right, so into the details of the Old Forester Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. The mash bill on this is 65% rye, 20% malted barley, and 15% corn, which is sort of the opposite of most of the stuff that I drink. Proof on it, as already stated, is 100, 50% ABV. It doesn't say anything about being bottled in bond, but I don't know if that has anything to do with rye whiskey. That might only apply to bourbon. So another thing I don't know.
The Forester 100 is considered bottled in bond either.
Bottled in bond has specific requirements. I just don't know if it applies to the alcohol itself. I don't know if you can have a bottled in bond rye. You probably can. I just don't know. There's nothing on this bottle that says anything about being bottled in bond. It just says it's 100 proof. So there you go. It comes, of course, from Louisville, Kentucky. The color on it is chestnut brown, that I've seen mentioned in a couple of places. And it's actually really interesting. It's not the best rye I've ever had, but it's very good. But like I said, I like pretty much everything that comes out of Old Forester. So some of the nosing notes are brown sugar. It's definitely high in the brown sugar. Very sweet. I get banana. This says magnolia blossom. That's not my note. I don't know what a magnolia blossom smells like. I probably would if I actually smelled one, but it's not really in my brain right now. So I'm going to change this to floral because it definitely has a floral note, but I can't say it's specifically magnolia. Also, sassafras and candied lemon, and you definitely get those on the nose. So on the taste, I get all of these notes, but not in this order. They say black pepper, general spiciness, cinnamon, dill, and baked apple. And I get all of that, but I also get a nuttiness like not a peanut, more of a mixed, sort of like the general smell you get from a bowl of mixed nuts. So I'm just going to say mixed nuts. But to me, the black pepper and the spiciness is not as prominent as the apple, cinnamon, and dill and nuts. It's sort of in the opposite order. And then on the finish, you get a little bit of allspice, black pepper or peppercorn, some pine, anise, and lemon. It's interesting that the rye spice, which you normally associate with anise or black licorice or something like that, really doesn't come out until sort of the end. You don't get it at the beginning. And this is 65% rye, which is interesting. But even at 100%, or 100 proof, not 100%, it feels a little thin to me. It's definitely not nearly as good as like the Peerless that Bill had and the Rossville that I have, or that we both have. But it's very good, and it's a lot less expensive than those. A fifth of it runs $25 or so, maybe a little less. And I got a liter of it at the distillery for $29. So, yeah. While it's not as good as things like Rossville Union, it is still very good. It's a highly drinkable rye, even straight. I will definitely be using this to make old fashions with because I think it's going to be fantastic. And it's a perfect like daily sipper for a rye whiskey, and I'm going to enjoy draining this bottle. So, rating wise, I'm going to give it a 90. It's very good. And at the price point, it's really good. So if you want to check out a decent rye that like won't hit you over the head with rye spice and is a perfectly good daily drinker, definitely check out the Old Forester Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. You have something, Bill?
Well, I had to rush in here, so no, not really. But I do. I am enjoying some Rossville Union rye, so yeah, I will definitely say that's best.
I kind of feel like I want to go back to the Rossville Union and look at what I gave it because I hope it's less than 90.
Do you hope it's less than 90?
Or more than 90? Sorry.
Oh yeah,
I hope it's more.
It should be. Deserves to be.
Where did I do Rossville Union?
Can't remember. But anyway, I'll also talk about a cheap wine because I'm all about cheap wines as well. And we joined we joined Sam's Club because we were just bored one day, and we went over there, and I was like, I want to see what their cheap red wine tastes like. And of course, this is their Members Mark red blend wine. It comes in 1.5 liter jug for $9. This can't be good, right? And it's actually not bad. I've had a lot worse wines for more money. But yeah, if you've been afraid to try it because it's really cheap wine, I would say it's probably not bad. Not bad. Good wine. You can even throw some ice in there, maybe make a little, sangria out of it or something like that if you'd want to. Yeah, but for $9, yeah, really good.
I found the Rossville Union. I gave it a 95. So absolutely spot on. So
yeah, that sounds good. Yep.
All right. I feel like I'm hitting these, like I'm not contradicting myself when I do these reviews. So I worry about that sometimes.
Yeah, you're pretty consistent. So I don't think we found many that you've taken back.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of things I've revisited and changed my opinion of, but I think if I pick a rating, I've pretty much been sort of spot on where it lives. So,
well, and sometimes it's a little hard too if you've chosen a single barrel or something like that. There might be some just differences in the whole line when you get like a blended product versus a single barrel pick. So those can also kind of alter the decisions of the rating because that barrel can be very, very specific. So always take that in mind when you look at a rating and make sure it's not on a single barrel. If it's on a single barrel, then, it's really much that lot number and that barrel.
Right.
Yeah, if it's a blended product, like obviously this Old Forester is a blended product. So you should be able to just pick any bottle up off the shelf and it should pretty much be the same.
Right. And I think I've been pretty good about being very specific when something has been a single barrel batch of something.
Yes, you have.
So. All right. Very good. So that's it for the alcohol and the booze and all that good stuff. We do have one bit of feedback that we need to touch on. This is a YouTube comment from, I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm going to go with Didachi Menarakiza. Sure.
Okay. Sounds good.
If you'd like to correct me, feel free. He says, good. And I'm assuming that good is in reference to the video. This was the video about using Cubic to create your own distribution. He says, can you make a video to install Proteus 8 in Ubuntu? And we could, but there are already videos about that. Other people have done this. And the way you do it, because it's a Windows-only application, at least in all the videos I saw, was to use Play on Linux. So if you want to use Proteus 8 on Ubuntu, YouTube search is your friend, which is also Google search because, YouTube is Google. And I watched several videos about installing Proteus 8 on Ubuntu, and they all use Play on Linux. So unless you want to augment that, Bill, that's my answer.
No, yeah, I was like, the same kind of path as I didn't even look it up because I saw it was Windows right away, and I'm like, well, yeah, you're going to be using some kind of emulation layer, whether that's Wine, Proton, Play on Linux, what have you. And your mileage may vary. It's not a guaranteed thing that it's going to work right, and even if I showed it to you on one particular box and distribution, it may not run the same on another one just because they're just Windows apps on top of Linux aren't really the way to go if you're trying to make that part of your workflow. Much easier just install a VM with Windows on it and install the software natively in Windows and call it good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that brings us. Oh shit! Why am I stop?
Didn't mute your phone.
I don't know why my phone started playing.
The thing is, I've noticed throughout the podcast that there was points when Bill would speak and it would pop and he would almost disappear and then slowly fade back.
He got the scratchiness and the ducking this time too. So,
Jeez, fix that then. It's probably Reaper doing something weird.
It sounds like you're like dragging your finger across the microphone of a headset.
Oh, well, that's definitely not happening.
Well, right. But that's what it sounds like.
But his voice would like almost completely disappear and then slowly grow louder again.
Well, that's typically what happens when you have an audio gain issue. It will duck when it's flat tops. It'll duck
Right.
and then come back, and that's exactly the behavior we were seeing. We saw it on the last one too.
Yeah, I'll have to change some stuff up there. So it's all my fault.
Of course. Well,
So start beating on some stuff.
We'll be
It'll
happy to
fine.
blame you regardless of whatever the issue is. So.
Yeah. It's only because I switched to using, Reaper and Jack and stuff like that. I mean, it's literally the same mixer and everything else. It has its own limiter, compressor, and stuff like that in it. But the only thing I've changed was I'm running Reaper now. So I think that might be the issue.
Okay. Well, very good. We'll try and sort that out. So sorry for any of the audio quality issues in this episode, but let's go ahead and wind her up, and we'll let Cheryl carry us through the social media stuff.
Alrighty then. So for this week, for our subscribers and Patreons, we did not have any new ones. For Facebook, Claude Lamott, Kevin Broussard, Randy Ronaldo, Ernst Schmidt, and Ronald Joachim joined us.
Joachim.
Yeah.
Don't
Probably,
use the
but-
pork. Don't use the pork.
Yeah. No new Twitter users. For YouTube, we had NMac101. For Discord, we had Jim, N3JLN, W7GXI Nolan, and Darkstar PDX. We had no merchandise sales. And for our live chat, we have KC9ZMY, which is Don, KU7PDX, which is Chris, KB2YSI, which is Don, K1BTZ, which is John, N8DAH, which is David, K4XSS, which is Tony, and KB7YS, which is Stacy.
All right. Had a nice crew in there tonight. Thanks to everybody for tuning into the live chat. Hope it was enjoyable. And we publish where you can join the live chat on our social media platforms each week. So if you want to listen to the recording live, you're certainly welcome to do that. We would love to have you. We like to have the discussion while we're doing the show. It always keeps us entertained. And we hope you have a great week. I want to thank everybody for being here, for downloading the show, for being a part of the program, and especially to our sponsors and Patreons for helping support us and keeping the show going for so long. We appreciate all of you. And we hope you have a great next week, and tune in for the next one, which should be a deep dive. We'll figure out what the topic is over the ensuing few days. And we hope you tune in for that one as well. In the meantime, have a great night or day or whatever it is when you're listening to this. And we'll catch you on the next one. This has been episode number 478 of Linux in the Ham Shack. I'm Russ, K5TUX.
I'm Cheryl, W5MOO.
And I'm Bill, NE4RD 73.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Linux in the Ham Shack. LHS is a community-sponsored podcast. Our website is located at lhspodcast.info. You can support the podcast by visiting the LHS Patreon page at patreon.com/LHS Podcast, or by using the contribute list on the homepage. We have a presence on Discord, Facebook, IRC, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also drop us an email at info@lhspodcast.info, or leave us a voicemail at 1-909-LHS-SHOW. That's 1-909-547-7469. Visit the online LHS merchandise store at shop.lhspodcast.info for fun and fashionable show-themed merchandise. Until next time, remember to always heed your hedonism.